everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a new video. First of all, I have two disclaimers. First of all, I am so sorry for the lightning. I haven't set up my ring light yet, so this is the best I can do. And it got so cloudy and dark outside, so I do not have much natural light left, so I had to turn on the ceiling lights. But yeah, this is what we're working with, so yeah. And then if you notice me pronouncing words weirdly, it's because up until yesterday I had stitches right here inside my mouth, and now I have the scar yet, so it's weird. It feels weird. My lower lip had something on it that it sprouted, I guess, and the doctor had to do a biopsy to let me know what it was. It's nothing too bad. Apparently it's something that can happen with stress, so that checks out because I've been stressed. So there's that, yeah. But yeah, it's not fun trying to talk with something inside your mouth, so I am glad to be getting rid of it. But yeah, anyways, so we are doing my March and April wrap up here because I don't think I did one for March, so I have to combine both months here, and I'm gonna try to be quick for the books that I already reviewed in my reading blogs, but sometimes maybe there's people that haven't seen my reading blogs, so I will talk about all the books. So I'm not gonna go in order because I honestly don't remember the order where I read them, so I'm just gonna go by first the books that I do not have physically and I read digitally. So the first one is The 7 Years Sleep. I love that book. It's a romance, YA romance, and normally I'm not a huge romance girly, but I like my romances once in a while, and I have already heard a lot of good things about that book. And the premise intrigued me because it's a girl that lives in a flat that can travel 7 years to the past, but just the flat, not anything else, it's the flat. And of course there's this mysterious man that he meets at the apartment 7 years into the past, and they fall in love, and it's like their story, and it was so beautiful. I really enjoyed the story, and also I appreciated that it was not just the romance the focus, because we had friends, we have family, we had side stories, and we have also more heavy topics that I think were dealt with very beautifully and very carefully, with grief and death and things like that. I really enjoyed the book, and the writing style was so easy to get into, so easy to read, and I think the sentences were constructed so, I don't know, so fluidly, so cool. I love the book a lot. So definitely recommend that book to people that want to read a new kind of romance. So yeah. And the other one that I read digitally is the Philippe Claudel book called Monsieur Lin and His Child. And this is such a bittersweet book because it's about a refugee from Vietnam. It doesn't say explicitly it's Vietnam, but the clues are in the book. He's a grandpa that has lost his family, and he's traveling to France, I think it's France, as a refugee with his granddaughter. And there in France he meets this other old man, and that other old man has lost his wife, so they bond even though they cannot really communicate with each other because they don't speak the same language. And it's sweet, but it's so sad. And there's a twist that when I discovered that, it got even sadder, so oh my god. But I really like that book, and it was the pick of the month for April, I think, for my in-person book club that I go to. And yesterday we had the meeting and we did a very good session about it, so yeah. But yeah, I do recommend the book. It's sad, but it deals a lot with human emotions. So if you want to read about that, I do recommend the book. Okay, now we can review the books that I read from my physical TBR actually. So the first one that I have here is Dark Days by James Baldwin. This is a collection of his essays on race and racism. Love that. He has very interesting perspectives because, he speaks from experience as a Black man. And I thought that his writing was very compelling, very well structured. And if he does this in essays and non-fiction, I cannot wait to read his fiction books. But this was very educational, so definitely recommend these to people that want to know more about the race issue. This is only covering the United States of America because he lives there, lived. But yeah, it's a good book for educating yourself about Black people and the problems that they've been facing for centuries. So yeah, the next book I also read a non-fiction by George Orwell, and it's Notes on Nationalism. Again, this is a collection of essays that he wrote about nationalism and different types of nationalism, not just love for one's country, but other forms of nationalism like communism, Trotskyism, anti-Semitism, Zionism. So it was really interesting, and I think more nowadays that nationalisms are rising up again. I have been saying nationalisms and words that ends with ism a lot, and I cannot pronounce that right with my teachers having there. It's a bit frustrating, but trust me when I say that this was a really good book, even though the topic might seem boring or difficult to understand, I guess. I don't know. I'm very familiar with nationalism because I studied it a lot in university. In history, we studied nationalism a lot because it was not a problem, but like a main feature of the 20th century. And now it's very interesting to see the patterns repeat themselves now again in the 21st century. So that's a bit scary, but yeah, this is a good book to learn about that. Then we have another George Orwell. I read Animal Farm. Liked the book, but I ended up so frustrated, not because of the book, but because I could clearly see that this was based in the Russian Revolution from the past century, but it had so many similarities to how today's society works, and it has their problems, and it was so frustrating to see people's and society's errors being repeated over and over again, and it made me so angry. But I really enjoyed how the storytelling went. I think George Orwell delivers his messages very well. He knows what he's doing, so yeah, there's that. But yeah, definitely we'll be reading more by George Orwell this year. Hopefully most of his book. I have another 2 in my physical TBR, so we will get to those eventually. But yeah, a really good book again to read today, taking into account what is happening in the world around us. So yeah. Then I also read Paulo Coelho La Espía, or The Spy, and this is a historical fiction about a real person, about Mata Hari, that she was a Dutch woman that worked as an exotic dancer in France, in Paris specifically, and then she went to Germany, and she ended up tangled in like a espionage mission for the Germans. But this book focuses more on her earlier life and how she got from the Netherlands to what was it? I don't remember the name of the part of Indonesia where she was, but she was in Indonesia in a part where the Dutch colonized that, and there was where she saw the Oriental dances for the first time, and that's where she got the idea of becoming an Oriental dancer. But this is a story about her life. Paulo Coelho based the story on the real person and the real writings that we have of Mata Hari. There's a report written by the English Secret Service that went out in 1999, and I think he used that. And there's also reportedly a book that is her diary that apparently she wrote, and he also based things on that. He also mixed a lot of things with fictional things, so I don't know for sure what the percentage of truthness in this book, but it was a really, really insightful read, and I enjoyed learning more about female figures in male-dominated fields, I guess, because we don't really learn about women in history. That is changing now, thankfully, but men raised women's influence and their protagonism a lot while they wrote history, so it was nice hearing about a woman in history. But yeah, okay. Next book, I read Perfection by Vincenzo Ladronico. This was a book that is vibes, no plot, but I really like those types of books, so that was good for me. A warning, there's not a line of dialogue in the book, nothing. So if you love to see conversations back and forth and this and that, do not pick up this book because you won't find any of that. But I really like the things that were treated here. There's like this is a millennial couple, Anna and Tom, and they move, I think, from Italy to Germany to live there, and they talk about their life and how they're constantly searching for something better, something to make them happier, more successful, because for me the theme of this book was never being satisfied with the life that we have, so we are constantly searching for something that can fulfill us more. And it was a good portray of that, in my opinion, and it was filled with disappointment and I don't know, things like that. So yeah, I think the author did a really great job writing the book, because even though there was no dialogue, it was only narration, I didn't feel like it was dragging or boring. It was slow, of course, because you don't have these quick interruptions of conversation. It's just paragraph after paragraph of narration, but I love the writing style and I think it was very good. So if you like this kind of books, maybe you will enjoy this one. But yeah, also it was very European. It has a lot of reference to millennial culture and European things, so yeah, I really like that. Then we have the 8 Classics, and I enjoy this book. It was true that it took me a really long time to finish it. I don't know why I wasn't fully invested in the book. I think it's because there are 6 characters and I was not really invested in some of them, and the way that the book goes, each have their own point of view, so they narrate the story. So when it got to those characters parts, I was like, okay, and sometimes I stopped reading, and yeah, I think that's why it took me so long. But the story was very interesting, the premise was very interesting, and I also became attached to some of the characters, like Livy, for example. I don't know if this is popular or unpopular within the fandom because I have no clue, but she is a little anxious, stressful, and I think everyone finds her annoying, but I feel so connected to her, guys. Maybe I see myself in her a bit, in her anxiousness, but yeah, I love the baby. And I'm scared to continue the trilogy because people say that the second and third book gets a bit worse. I don't know what will happen, but I am very intrigued. I will be continuing the series because I am intrigued, but it wasn't like a favorite of mine, but I still enjoy the book. And then we come to my second 5 stars of the year, and it's The Will of the Many. It took me years to read this book. Yes, I don't know why I waited so long. I loved the book. I loved it so much. Also, I found it so interesting how the politics in this book reflect a lot of politics today, like how they work today, also how they worked in Rome centuries ago, but today too. And the methods of control that they use here are really good explanation on how the elite people manipulate people, like normal people, like working class and things like that. So I think this is a really good book because not only it has a fantastic plot and a fantastic story, it also reflects a bit the situation that we might find ourselves today in. So it can help you open your eyes and learn about life, I guess. But this was really good, in my opinion. I really like the protagonist. I really like the world based in Rome and Roman mythology and the Roman Empire. But yeah, and it was really satisfying to read this. Also, it had an academic setting, which I love as usual. But yeah, the ending was brutal, so I needed to pick up the second book immediately after that. So that's why my last book for this video is The Strength of the Few, which is the second book after The Will of the Many. I didn't enjoy this book as much as I enjoyed the first book, because here we have not one point of view, but we have 3 points of view, and each one is in a different world. And I think that the 2 worlds that are new in this world are not as well developed as the original world, because obviously you have put 3 stories with 3 worlds in almost the same length as one world. So obviously it's not gonna feel as satisfying, at least that's my opinion. Also, there were a lot of characters that were introduced like that and then dead like that, and I was like, what is going on? So yeah, that's that. Also, I didn't agree on how certain characters dies towards the end of the book. I was like, what is this? Because it was a very stupid death for me, in my opinion. But I think a lot of people share my own point of view, because yeah, it cannot be. I felt like the author was playing with me. I was like, what? And unless something happens in the third book that saves that, I will still be thinking that it was a really poor choice for the author to do that and how he wrote that scene. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, I still enjoyed this book, and I will of course still be reading the third book, because what happens at the end here, we learn some interesting twists. Oh, the first one has amazing twist that I could not see coming. I was like, what is going on? So yeah, it was a really cool reading experience. So yeah, but yeah, these are all the books that I have read for March and April. I think in total there was 10 books, and it was 8 physical TBR books and 2 digital books. So we are doing well on my physical TBR. I will need to do an update on that. But I think that's all. Let me know if you have read any of these books and your thoughts and opinions on them. We can chat in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!